So I was just going through my YouTube channels and I realized that I never made the part two for when I PCS'd over here. So I want to continue that from 2 years ago and just kind of explain like the process of what it's like to PCS to Okinawa, Japan when you're in the military. So when we departed the United States, we departed from Atlanta to Tokyo commercially. And that was the longest day of my life because I think I had about 24 hours of sunlight and the sun was following me as we went up around by Alaska and then back down south again towards Tokyo, because that is the closest distance to get there, or the closest route to get there if you do it on a globe, as you go up and then south. And then from Tokyo, we went from there straight to Okinawa. So at the time, we had a 6-year-old daughter, which was a challenge because that's an extra person you have to carry that can't walk on their own. And that extra person also happens to have additional things that needs to be brought as well. We ended up having 11 separate articles of things to bring, between stroller, car seat, strap, or I don't know, device to like put in, the diaper bag, plus her things, our things. It was quite a lot. And then of course herself, because she can't carry her own things, we have to carry both her and her things. So we had to have, like, you know, the carts to put multiple things on, but they weren't enough because we had 11 things. So we were pushing like 2 luggage carts plus a stroller. It was quite chaotic. And then of course we just went through a 24-hour travel, which was a very exhausting endeavor in and of itself. When we got to the airport, going through customs and stamping our orders and going in separate lines and stuff for military, we finally get outside and it's nighttime, and my buddy Kirk, that I've known from flight school from like 6 or 7 years earlier. In fact, I know him earlier than flight school. I met him at TBS in Quantico, Virginia. We were both in TBS together, Charlie Company. He was there. He was in the squadron that I was checking into. And he was there with my friend's wife and her van, also there. And between their 2 vehicles, they were able to fit all our stuff and family in there. And then they drove us to our hotel. And we were like catching up, but we were also like exhausted. And eventually, like after very quickly, we were like, hey, we just gotta go pass out now. And we said our goodbyes and just passed out for the rest of the night. Getting into the hotel room, very small room, didn't matter, just passed out. But I also woke up at like 4 a.m. that night as well, because my brain and body and circadian rhythm was still thinking that it was like noontime or whatever back at the United States. So my body was having a lot of trouble adjusting. For the first few nights, I was waking up at 4 a.m., eventually turned into 3, and then 2, 4, and then 5, and then 6. And then eventually it was like normal. I'd say after about like a week to 10 days, my circadian rhythm got better. For the following week, my sponsor was picking me up from the hotel because I didn't have a car. And he would help me take care of some of the administrative things that needed to get done when you first check into Okinawa. For example, I needed to set up my COLA, my cost of living allowance, which is an allowance you get for living out here due to things costing more than they normally do in the United States. For example, if I want to buy an apple, it costs like, I don't know, a lot more than it does. Like bananas are like $2 a piece. I think you could pay like $20 for like a pineapple out here. It's quite crazy. Grapes are super expensive. Fruits are just very expensive in general, but in general, things are more expensive here. I mean, we are living on an island after all, so you can imagine that the logistics to get things to here is probably more costly than the logistics to get something on a continental-based grocery store. Other things that I had to do were pick up my military gear. So I remember dropping off all my military gear just like a week or 2 ago, or I guess I took a vacation, so like maybe like a month ago, and now I had to like repick it all up in Japan because it doesn't follow you when you change duty stations. I'll have to do the same when I get out of here in a few months. The other things I had to do were get my travel reimbursements, like for the hotel room and things like that, set up. I had to get myself added onto the urinalysis roster because I'm now liable for getting spot checked for drug use and things like that. So there's just a whole bunch of like admin functions that you have to do like anywhere else that you would check into a unit. You also have to do it here when you check in to a unit in Japan. Unfortunately, the process out here is quite inefficient. And the reason for that is because there is no military installation that houses all the different things that need to get done. So out here in Japan, I worked in Futema, but for housing things, I had to go to, I forget if it was Schwab or Leicester. No, not Leicester, definitely not Leicester. That's a resident spot, but Foster is like a big one. I believe Schwab was another one that I may have had to go to. Each spot or base, there's multiple bases, has different things that you need to get done. So it becomes a big burden to not have a car. And then you can imagine like with a sponsor, they have to help you get to all these places that you can't get to on your own. So sponsorship is a pretty big deal out here in Japan. So I didn't want to be a burden on a lot of my squadron mates that I was about to work with. So getting a car was one of the things that I definitely wanted to get done quickly. We have, a family of 3 right now. So I knew I was going to get 2 cars. When you come out to Japan, there's really 2 ways that you get cars. You could get a car from a secondhand car from a dealer, or you could get it from a peer or like out in town outside of a dealership. And there's pros and cons to both. So if you get a car from a dealer, you're going to get a 2-year warranty, but it's also going to cost you a premium. It's going to cost you more money to get all that. Plus the JCI, the inspection that needs to get done every 2 years, is usually going to be up to date. They're going to get you a fresh one when you purchase the car. When you get it from a peer or like from Buku, which is like Craigslist out here in Okinawa, you're going to have to fall in on the JCI inspection that the owner had, which could be almost due, which means you'd be liable for paying for that inspection and then all the costs that the inspection may find that you need to get done in order to continue using the car. But the benefit is that you're going to get a cheaper car. So I knew for my family I wanted to have a dependable car, but I also knew that I didn't need 2 dependable cars. So the first car we got was a dealership one. We paid about like $3,000 for that one. Dependable car, 2-year warranty, fresh JCI, awesome. And then the second car, I knew I didn't really care as much. So I was gonna not pay $3,000 for another car. I was gonna use the secondary car markets or like the private markets. And I went on Buku and I looked for $3,000 cars and I just offered $1,000 to like 50 of them. And obviously most people are like, how dare you offer me $1,000 for my car that I'm asking $3,000 or $4,000 for? But I was like, okay, like it doesn't matter to me. Like once someone's gonna need me to buy their car off of them. And I was in no rush because I already had a car that we were sharing as a family. And one day, like 3 or 4 weeks after I put in an offer, someone's like, hey, are you still willing to buy my car for $1,000? And I was like, yeah, I'm still here. I'm here to help you. And he's like, I need to sell my car. No one has bought it. He was a Toyota Celica, $3,000. I know he paid for it $3,000, but he couldn't sell it for the same price that he thought he was going to sell it for, which was the same price that he bought for. And test drove it, and I got a car for $1,000. That's way better than a lot of my colleagues' cars that they paid much more money for. So after I got my check-in stuff done, I got my cars purchased. I was still living in a hotel. We needed a place to live. So we went house shopping. We saw a couple places, some bigger, some smaller. Unfortunately, everything out here is quite small. But we found a place in Sanabe, which is quite a popular hip place in the Okinawan area. It's mostly American service members, but there's also a lot of locals that live in this area too. It's not as American as American Village, which is very like Western looking, but it's a pretty cool place. We're like 200 yards from the seawall, so I got the ocean right there. We got parks in the neighborhood, and lots and lots of restaurants that are easily walkable too. Running is awesome because I could just run to the park to work out, or I could run on the seawall if I want to do that. So it was a good place that we picked, and ultimately we picked a good spot. And then our household shipping goods finally came in. A whole bunch of Japanese workers from the local company moved all our furniture inside and things like that, and then we were able to essentially just get settled in. And it's been a good time since. I would say it was a good time for the first year, and then COVID hit, and then unfortunately we weren't able to travel as much. But we took advantage of the first year. We visited a lot of Eastern countries out here. We saw Taiwan, Thailand, Singapore, South Korea, and mainland Japan, of course. And I was fortunate enough to travel to the Philippines on 3 separate occasions for work. So it's been pretty good opportunities that we've been able to capitalize on just by living out in this part of the world. Again, if you like this content, go ahead and subscribe. I like to put up things that deal with military, travel, martial arts, language acquisition, just learning, things like that, mostly for my friends and family, but I enjoy the stranger commenting and asking questions and just trying to learn more. Thanks.